Marketing takes time, costs money, and it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Your competition is also doing it. And the marketplace is confused. Where should they place their time, attention, and money? So when it comes to your marketing efforts, how can you get it right? Today, we're here with Randall Craig, who is discussing a new approach to marketing that can build competitive advantage for your organization. For those who don't yet know Randall, he has founded several successful startups. He held a long-time position at a Big Four consulting firm. He was a senior executive at an American public company, the author of 8 books, in the Speaker Hall of Fame. He's helped over 100 organizations scale, and he works with me at the Brain Trust Professional Institute, where we help organizations grow their businesses. So, Randall, get us started with some ideas. In your experience, where do you think leaders need to rethink their approach to marketing?
So to do that, I wanted to speak to what you just said about competitive advantage first, because I think if we understand competitive advantage, then we have a better idea of what we're actually marketing. So to get a sustainable competitive advantage, where I would start is well, I guess the intellectual property. When I say IP, it could be content, it could be methodology, it could be technology, but something that is unique to the organization. It's the question about innovation, as opposed to static. If there is innovation in the organization, that means that it's going to be change, and the IP will actually become stronger over the time. You'll track what your clients actually need. The third sort of thing is really the people. Where does thought leadership come in? Where does becoming a trusted advisor come in? If we do all these things, we have a good sense of what the brand actually is. And at that point, we could say, okay, and here's the product and service and how it fits in. So if we think about sustainable competitive advantage, we've got those things. Then we can say, okay, now what are we marketing? And we could start to use some of the frameworks that we like to use, from price expertise, trust, or the trust curve, or personas. We use techniques like journey mapping and touch points. We could use techniques like strata. And once we've got that design, if you will, then we can move into an implementation, the various initiatives, the channel strategy, content marketing, marketing automation, CRM, training, all of those kinds of things. And interestingly, when you're doing that implementation, some of those things drive some of the competitive, sustainable competitive advantage. So, this is a big area to explore. But I thought that rather than saying, okay, well, price, product, place, promo, like, some like ancient framework, for example, without exploring a sustainable competitive advantage makes no sense. Same thing if we sort of drill into, well, we have to implement some marketing technology, a CRM or marketing automation. Well, thank you. We gotta move up. Okay, some of these frameworks to sort of do that marketing strategy, marketing plan first. So that's kind of where I would say, the higher level conversation is with respect to marketing. Because once we sort of go through some of those things, it becomes a lot easier to actually be successful doing marketing, perhaps from another perspective, a new perspective.
Okay, lots to unpack. I have heard you present about your marketing many times and your trust curve, and we have lots of content for our listeners who want to know more about this to reach out. And price and trust and where all these things play in. I really rarely hear you talk about influencer marketing. So, when you give your examples, when you show your usual funnels, it's usually not there. Meanwhile, we know that in popular culture, the cult of personality is so important to like brand awareness and building a relationship with the client. Like, can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, thinking about B2B versus B2C is a very interesting thing, because in the B2C market, where we don't spend as much time, influencer marketing is absolutely critically important. It's critically important. Why? Because people are always looking for that third-party endorsement. And, certainly influencer marketing, and, it got started in the health, beauty, fashion sort of world. And suddenly, it goes into food, and now you actually have influencers in financial services and investment products. So it's very, very important. In the B2B market, the question about whether influencer marketing is as effective as other forms of third-party endorsement, because we talk about, gee, how do we change somebody who's an expert into a thought leader? And in a certain sense, thought leaders can be influencers, but it's not just, hey, let's talk about something rather. It's really more, gee, they've got the authority, they've got the gravitas, they've got the experience, they are thought leaders, there are followers to that. So while we might not use in B2B marketing the word influencer, okay, in an absolute sense, it is. I'd also say, when we think about where do we get referrals, in a certain sense, that's influencer marketing, not in the social media sense of it, but it's also the same thing. I can drill down on the B2C use of influencer marketing and everything, but that's just one part of it. And for those listeners, viewers who are considering it, I'd say, yeah, it's something to explore. But the question is, how do you use that? Where does that fit into the trust curve? How do you actually make sure that it's not a one and done, but it's building a sustainable relationship with that target market rather than just influencers like to grow their influence, but you're paying to sort of have them endorse you. So unless there's that transfer of center of gravity from the influencer to you, the people that find out about you, well, you want them to convert, right? So you have to make sure. So influencer marketing, generally speaking, is paired with performance advertising or something else to move that conversion, not just influencer marketing by itself. We play more in the B2B space, so that's usually why I don't spend so much time on it.
I like that you made the distinction between B2C and B2B with regards to marketing and use of influencers. But even in a B2B context, it's not a B, this entity, this non-person making a decision. It's always a C. There's always a C making the decision that is still influenced by the influencer. So in my view, I think the faces and personalities and voices of the company are still very important. Where would you put that in your trust curve framework?
So what I would say, there's a lot of literature out there that talks about all selling and all marketing is H2H, human to human. And Rania, you're exactly right with respect to that. But the idea of a consumer buyer who's making a decision for their own personal consumption is very different than a business buyer, where there's usually a more complex decision-making process, and oftentimes the price point, and therefore the complexity is far, far, far higher, right? So I don't think it's a question of where does it fit in the trust curve, but really, we have to realize that it's an individual who's making decisions. Right. And so, how do we influence that specific individual? In which case, whether it's B2B, B2C, business to government, B2G, there's a whole bunch of B2 whatevers. And you have to make sure you're absolutely right, the human part of it. But what's the marketing mix of a B2C versus a B2B? If the consulting firm, for example, it's fairly unlikely that a Facebook ad will drive their target, client into the mix as much as a Facebook ad, for example, might cause a particular consumer to purchase a particular product for a specific need.
You mentioned referrals as a different type of influencer marketing, and we should all have lots of good referrals because we're doing good business, hopefully. I know for your brand, the Randall Craig brand, the Green Trust brands, trust is paramount to you and strong consideration in all the decisions that we do. But I've also seen that in your view, pardon me, buying referrals with referral fees is distasteful for you, and you find that it's, takes away from credibility, it takes away from trust if somebody's getting a kickback. But that sort of impugns that the people in your network can be bought and will make recommendations that are subpar if they're getting kickback. Like, can't it be both? Can't it be that they would only make quality recommendations, but they need that incentive? Is it always the case that dirties it by paying for a referral?
So I that's a very interesting one. So let's unpack it first. There's some types of business, for example, CPAs, where there's a regulatory issue of if you're accepting referral fees as an example, that might be perceived as impugning independence and objectivity. So there's some there's some professions where you can't actually pay or receive for referrals, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't show appreciation, right? Whether it's taking somebody out to the ball game or finding a way to return the favor with a referral the other direction, etc. There's a regulatory issue for a lot of those. As a result of that, for a lot of service businesses, um, that mindset is sort of shifted over. So, for example, various management consultants sort of have that kind of view as well. I'm probably in that camp. On the other hand, other people say, well, listen, if there's transparency, if everybody knows that when I do such and such, I'm going to get some money, then and everyone's happy with that, then there isn't a problem. I think the challenge though is when there isn't the super high trust. So, for example, if a client trusts me intimately, right? Intimately, and I'm a trusted advisor to them, and they say, "Can you recommend so and so? Can you recommend we got a problem. How do we solve it?" And I can say, "Well, listen, I'm not the person to solve it. That's not in my expertise. There isn't a particular brain trust professional institute deliverable that can solve that. However, I do know somebody who I think might be a great fit for you." Right. And if the trust is so high, I should be able to say, just so you know, if you get the work, if you give them the work, they'll write me a check. Right. And the trust is so high, the person would say, well, not a problem. Okay, because I know you being my trusted advisor, that is um, you know, you're giving it you're giving me the advice because I am the trusted advisor. So in that particular case, it's not a problem. But let's just say you're not sort of up at that trusted advisor level. You're just several rungs down. You've done some work for them in the past. They thought they'd ask you, right? And it's not locked in. And you say, well, here's the person, and and gee, is the person being referred because there's some payola happening? Well, gee, are they really the best person for me? Right? I haven't earned the right to sort of say that. And if I said to them, listen, I'm just so you know, these people are in my trusted network, and I will get a referral fee and everything, then it may be okay, it may not be okay. Right? And if I'm completely new, it'll impact the trust that somebody has on me, particularly if they find out about it afterwards, right? So, there's different ways people do it. Some people say, well, I don't pay referral fees at all. Others say, well, we're going to do a mutual referrals, and eventually it'll sort of even out, etc. Sometimes people say, well, I accept referral fees, but I donate it to charity. Any fees that I get. I mean, there's different ways of people doing it. I think it's something to look at, right? But I think it's also something you got to be careful about, because if it's unexpected, it may have a big impact on their trust in you.
So for your marketing recommendations, you would always recommend to have a shiny, flashy, beautiful website, nice, beautiful social media with new content. But we see SMEs and also not so large ones where the websites are humble at best, sometimes non-existent, sometimes very outdated, and their social media may be crickets, posts maybe from years ago. We know their businesses are doing well, but they're not active on social media, or it even has like full of embarrassing errors. We see this all the time in people's social media. Like half the time the links don't work, but their company is humming along and bringing in business. Okay, so what do you chalk this up to? Like luck? Like we know that the buyers are so influenced by these visual digital assets, and yet companies still do really well. So help me untangle this.
Yeah, it is nonsensical to me that people let that kind of thing happen, right? But let's just follow the thread. So they've got an advisory firm has got um, a number of very big clients that pay the rent, and they're doing very, very well and everything. And they say to themselves, you know what? Why do I bother investing in stuff that's not necessary? I don't invest in Yellow Pages advertisements anymore. That's not necessary. Gee, I've got my business cards from like 20 years ago. It's just got my email address and phone number. I don't need to have anything like that. And all this is it. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it really doesn't matter, Rania, right? Until they lose these big clients that are paying the rent, or the economy goes down, or the market changes and they've got to do a little bit more active marketing, or a whole bunch of other things. So, we talked about referrals just a moment ago. So let's just play this one out. Somebody refers some business to you, right? They said, "Oh, gee, you need to speak to Rania." And what are they going to do? They're going to go to the brain trust. They're going to not search for Rania Francoeur, but they're going to go to the Brain Trust Professional Institute and see what's going on there, right? And what should be there is something that credentializes you, right? So if the business is going just absolutely perfectly and they're getting business, or they've got like a lot of legacy clients and that's where it is, not a problem. No one's checking the website, no one's sort of doing their due diligence, right? And when they do their due diligence and they find all kinds of bad links, or they find out of date information, or stuff that just looks like it's 10 years old, excuse me, they say, I'm not so sure. It degrades trust. So I think that it doesn't cost so much time and bother to have an updated website, so that when people are checking out, they're doing their due diligence, it becomes a little bit easier for them to say, yeah, I think I should meet with Rania. Gee, I think that what we should do is talk about this. Oh, I didn't know they do this as well, right? And so I don't know. There's also some people, maybe it's a generational thing, where some people think it's not, the um, so important, right? Some people still have fax machines. What can I say? Go for it. If it works for you, go for it. But fewer and fewer people are using fax machines, and more people are using websites, right? So.
I want to pull on a thread of something you said. You said if somebody wants to look me up to work with me, they're going to go to the company site, Brain Trust, and see, is Rania a credible person? Is this employee, wherever they are, what proof and credibility is there? And what IP do they have? What thought leadership do they have? I want to, we work with leaders, and we encourage them to motivate their minions, their employees, their partners to develop their own library of IP, like you said, to develop their own credibility, that when someone looks them up, and then that reflects well on the firm. But many employees, they have their contracts with their employers where whatever they create belongs to their employers. So the leader, of course, it works in their favor for the employee to spend their time and money developing stuff that reflects well on the company. But how are employees incentivized to do that if they don't get to own it and bring it with them?
So part of it is the employees are paid a salary to do a job, and that's part of the job, right? If you think about anybody, okay, who's working at an organization, not everybody is responsible for creating IP. Some people are responsible for using the IP. Other people are responsible for selling the IP. Other people are responsible for editing the IP, right? So everybody's got a different role within an organization, right? And you can't always have everybody doing everything. People have different strengths. So that's the way I would answer that. That being said, um, if you think about a large or even a mid-sized advisory firm, right? And there may be several people who've got the name, but everybody can use the IP. right? And the fact that everybody can use the IP, it's the brand of the organization that's getting built, not just the brand of individual people, right? And therefore everybody gets, the light shines on everybody in the organization, not just the people who are named.
We're talking about marketing. We want to talk about ROI. All the time and effort spent in marketing, it's time away from business development, time away from billable hours. How do you measure the ROI on your marketing efforts?
Well, I think that marketing is a very, you know, tactile kind of thing in terms of the stats that are available at every little corner of at every little stage, if you will. And I divide the measures into two. There's the money now measures, okay, and there's the money later measures. So for example, money now measures are the conversion gee, you're doing an event. How many people come to that event? How many people after the event want a conversation? How many, and so on, right? How many people view the advertisement or the the post about the event, right? So you can measure all those kinds of things and look at conversion rates and so on, right? Looking at the trends as well, that's an obvious one. Um, so that's part of it. The money later stuff is the question of, okay, so if we develop IP, for example, whether it's content or otherwise, some of that stuff has a continuing value, right? So that's a money later thing. Sometimes if we think about what we put in a marketing stack, okay, for example, social media, a website, a marketing automation system, an email blast system, etc. All those kinds of things and those expenditures, those are money later things because once in place, they continue to provide value and hopefully grease the wheels and reduce friction and make the marketing effects, more effective. I'd also say there's a difference between measuring a campaign that has got a beginning, middle, and end versus ongoing marketing investments, a bit of the money later stuff, right? So very often organizations will be pitched a campaign from their agency, from their ad agency that says, well, gee, this is what we're going to do. We spend a whole bunch of money and we're going to do this thing. Or you make an investment, for example, well, we're going to spend X dollars, we're going to go to these trade shows. Well, the trade show, beginning, middle, and end. The trade show is done. Now, what are you going to do with what you did at the trade show? The answer is nothing because it's not done. There's nothing there. So the question of all of these marketing stack items, okay, whether it be technology, or whether it be content, or whether it be other initiatives, for example, the more of those in place, the more multiplier effect, if you will, you'll get from the campaigns that an agency might suggest you do.
We see everywhere, in B2B especially, where we are, there's a very long sales cycle. So how do we tease out the difference between, suboptimal marketing and that long sales cycle? Like, how would you measure that?
I think measuring that is particularly difficult. Part of it is, so I guess the marketing gets the conversation started, and then call it the business development and funnel management, if you will, moves that to close. And that's a very long period of time, okay, depending on what it is, right? So I I think part of it is a question of say, hey, have we designed our sales stages in our CRM and in our processes, appropriately, right? And then do we have a sense as to generally how long should it take to move from one stage to the other? So if it takes an awfully long time, okay, for certain types of people to move from stage one to stage two, there's several things that might suggest. You're marketing to the wrong people, i.e. the wrong people are coming into the funnel, or it could be that the conversations that you're having with those prospects are the wrong ones, or the particular person, the human, back to that concept that you're actually talking to, is not the economic decision maker, and therefore they're not equipped to sort of move to the next stage. Or perhaps there's an educational problem. They don't realize the nature of the problem or the cost of it. which goes back to A, the conversation, and B, what kind of marketing stimulus that you could provide before they get into the funnel in the first place.
Randall, you are a businessman. You understand marketing, upselling, cross-selling. You understand the value of having different, pillars in your business that feed into each other. We've also seen you build a successful speaking career, public speaking career, and advisory firm as a coach, talking about marketing, talking about that marketing stack, inbound marketing content. And what's interesting to me is you cannot cross-sell into any of those things. You do not offer copywriting services. You never have. You don't offer video podcast services. You don't offer, creating templates. For me, I think it's interesting that you've picked this passion topic, which is your passion topic, and you like watching businesses sell, but you yourself in your own businesses have not developed other branches to profit from executing that. So is this a blind spot of yours as the businessman? I find it interesting that is it altruism that you're giving back? With that, we'll break here on part 1 on marketing competitive advantage. We'll pick up with more Q&A in part 2. But if anything we've talked about so far resonates with you, do reach out. We'd be happy to have a conversation and share resources. You can email us at info@randallcraig.com or book a call at randallcraig.net/30, and we'll see you back for part 2.